Hi, I'm Thomas Senna, co-host of the SNL Hall of Fame podcast.
And I'm Jeremy Dove, co-host of the Bigger Than the Game podcast.
Jeremy and I have joined forces to create a new podcast called Pop Culture 5 to ask the question, what are the 5 essential things about any given pop culture topic?
It could be 5 essential movies by an actor of our choice.
Or 5 essential songs by a musician of our choice.
We're not making a list of our personal favorites, it's the essentials.
And we better do a good job of justifying our essentials because one of us will have veto power each episode.
And I'm ready to tell Thomas why he's wrong.
All right, Jeremy, all right. Well, actually, why don't we give everyone an out-of-context peek at what we've been up to? So Pharrell was right next to me, and we looked at each other, and we were kind of like bobbing our heads. So he wasn't wearing his hat. Nobody really knew he was kind of incognito. But I had to do a double take. I'm like, that's Pharrell. And then he looked at me.
You just slipped that in there, this big name drop here. I was next to my man Pharrell. Like, whoa. I never heard this, everyone.
So join us to celebrate and discuss the essentials of pop culture.
Listen and subscribe to Pop Culture 5 wherever you get your podcast.
Hey, it's time to gather around the water cooler to talk the SNL Hall of Fame. Hey, it's JD here, and I want to welcome you back to the SNL Hall of Fame Water Cooler podcast. I'm heading downstairs right now because I am parched, and I'm ready to meet Joe and Shari to talk about this week's episode of the SNL Hall of Fame and, get a little bit of stuff off our chest, I suppose. Shari, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great, JD. Got my water bottle all filled up from the water cooler, and I'm ready to chat.
Nice. Joe, how about you, buddy?
I'm doing good. A little bit of water in the throat, but ready to talk about today's guest, and let's do this.
Let's get right to it. This week on the SNL Hall of Fame, we heard from Ryan McNeil of the Matinee Cast, and he brought to the table an argument for U2. Shari, would you recap this episode for us?
Absolutely. As you said, JD, it was Ryan McNeil, who has done several musical guest episodes. I couldn't remember all of them because I'm the senior citizen of the three of us, but I did remember most of them. Prince, Bowie, I believe. Those were the 2 I had written down, but I think he's done several others. And they're always ones that I am nuts about. But alas, Ryan has yet to have a hit. So he's hoping with U2 that he's going to finally have a hit. I don't think he is, but we'll see. We'll see. So Ryan made some very good points throughout the podcast, as did Thomas, who's a big U2 fan too. Ryan talked about seeing them at, I think it's the Sphere in Vegas. Is that right, Joe? You're the Vegas boy.
So let me point this out. In the episode, you corrected them. I said, they called it the Globe. It's the Sphere. I just want to say this. When I was listening to the episode, which, by the way, is a great episode. It starts off as a great musical tribute to U2, and it segues this Saturday Night Live. But anyway, when you corrected them about the Globe to the Sphere, I made that same mistake about 2 weeks ago, and I live here. So it's the Sphere. It's the Sphere.
I have heard nothing but incredible things about the Sphere and everything that Ryan said. I have a really good friend who is obsessed with U2, and she and her high school best friend have seen them dozens of times, and they went to the Sphere, and she said, this is by far their best performance. It's just such an amazing venue, and it was the perfect place for them. So Ryan talked a little about that. He and Thomas went back and forth about their feelings about U2. They did a little fantasy exercise, which I'm not going to give away because I want people to listen to it. But I thought that was very interesting too. And they talked, of course, about all 4 guest appearances, 2000, 2004, 2009, and 2018, how they felt about the song choices and the performances. It was a really great episode. Ryan always does a bang-up job. And of course, Thomas is the quintessential host.
I agree.
Well, we're going to roll into a new segment that we've got for you this week. At the end of every SNL Hall of Fame episode conversation, Thomas asks the guest for one last argument, one last pitch, one last kick at the can. And we're going to listen to that segment right now from the U2 episode, and then we're going to comment on it.
For sure, but why should voters really strongly consider U2 for the Hall, and maybe as like part of the show's musical legacy, knowing all that?
I'm glad you asked. There are only a small handful of bands that have had a 3-song night on SNL. No other band has had it more than once. And this band got it 2 times. So that, to me, it's like throwing a 20 strikeout game. And there's one pitcher who's done it twice. So that's the kind of thing. It's a special number in the legacy of the show. And not only have they hit the special number, but they did it 2 times.
Joe, what do you think?
Okay, I'm so glad you went to me because I agree with that. However, I want to add on to it because on the Luke Wilson show. Okay, now first off, because I've been wanting to say this for 20 years. So I'm so glad I finally get to get it out. Now first on the Luke Wilson one, it always bothered. There's 2 things. One that bothered me when they were doing the good nights. Luke Wilson and Bono were sitting at home base, and I always, to this day, have wondered why, because I've never seen that before or since. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying I'm glad I got that off my chest after 20 years. But the other thing that I want to point out is about the third performance. That is very rare. The only other person that comes to my immediate mind is Bon Jovi, and that's because he hosted. But anyway, with
Arcade
that
Fire.
one, Luke,
Arcade Fire did it.
Oh yes,
Well, at least once. Yeah.
yes. There was that great one with when Kristen Wiig left. Anyway, but with the Luke Wilson one, what I'm trying to get at is, so I don't want to take this away from you two. However, I just want to put it more in context. At least this is how it appeared to me. That was about a month, or at least 3 shows after the infamous Ashley Simpson hoedown incident.
Oh,
And in my mind, when I was watching it in live, the way I interpreted it was 2 things. One, Bono's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away. But I just thought, what better way to show the audience that Saturday Night Live is truly live and spontaneous than to have U2 do a 3rd song and have Bono go all in, crazy into the audience, messing with the camera, messing with the audience, and saying, yeah, Ashley Simpson goofed up. There was a technical goof up, but the show is in the moment live, and not just are the hosts and cast doing their thing, but the musical guest is gonna do their spontaneous thing. So I don't want to take it away from them, but on that specific appearance, that's the way I interpreted it 20 years ago, and I'm glad I got that off my chest too. It was the first thing I wrote down when I heard U2 was the subject today.
what do you think, Shari?
I 100% concur with Joe. I didn't even think about how Bono moved around the audience. That is a really good observation that Thomas made and that Joe made and that Ryan made of how he explores, to quote a famous sketch, the studio space. I think he's done that almost every appearance. And he's just he is, as Thomas said so beautifully, he is the definition of rock star. Bono is the definition of rock star. I have seen him live. He's amazing. People can say what they want about him. He's an incredible performer. He's not a young dude anymore.
Nope.
And he's still as good. And my friend clarifies this for me because she saw him when he was very young. He's still as good now as he was then. How many artists can you say that? It's a hand.
He's almost better because he's got a swagger about him, And that swagger can be annoying as well. It can come off sometimes as sanctimonious, but by and large, it's really cool to see. He is one of the epitomes of rock and roll cooldom.
Have
I just want
either
to
of
add,
you?
he doesn't age. Like he
No,
doesn't. He's not like the Stones or where he looks the same way he does in the '90s,
I agree.
or at least Bono.
Have either
Yeah.
of you seen him live?
No,
I have. Yeah.
You have.
Yeah.
So you
In
know exactly
Montreal.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I saw them on the All That You Can't Leave Behind tour. So I was late, I wasn't late to the party, but I never really wanted to see U2 live. Like I've never been a big U2 person, but that concert, like I've always enjoyed them, and that show solidified it for me. Like it was like, yeah, they are, they played the hits and they have a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, shall
I
we
saw
shift?
them.
Oh, sorry, Shari.
I'm sorry, GD. I just wanted to end with I saw them live very recently. It was like maybe 1 or 2 tours ago. It couldn't have been maybe 2018, maybe like just before the pandemic,
Okay.
2019. And they just blew the roof off the place because, like you said, JD, their hits are freaking endless.
Yeah.
And I, like you, am a Gen Xer, and they were Gen X. They were popular from 81 to, was it like 2000-ish was kind of their hot streak?
Yeah, I would say 81 to like 93 or
Yeah,
94,
something.
and then
Because,
again in 2000, like
right,
when
because they had that whole comeback, which they talked about in the episode, how they
that's
waited like
right.
20 years into their career to come to SNL. But
That's
by
right.
then they were on their second peak, so that's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were in the sweet spot for me. They were like high school, college. So they're one of my favorites. So
Oh yeah.
I was excited for this episode.
Yeah, they delivered. They really delivered. Well, let's slide over into the compare and contrast section, because I have a feeling that, Joe got some stuff off his chest that he's had there for 20 years. But I know that Shari's got some stuff that she wants to talk about, specifically where musical guests and the Hall of Fame is concerned. So I don't know if you want to kick us off, Shari.
I'd be happy to. I you made a really good point on the last episode, JD, at the end. You made a point about how musical guests are only 10 minutes of a 90-minute show. And I thought that was very, very perceptive. And, you only come in at the beginning and the end, friend, but when you come in, you make some very perceptive observations.
Well, thank
And
you.
I thought that was you're welcome. And I thought that was an excellent one. They are only 10 minutes. But ever since I was a kid, and I've been watching this forever, I always stayed around for the musical guests, and I always watched the performance. I didn't skip out and get a snack. I
Nope, me
didn't skip
neither.
out and go to the bathroom. As I've gotten older, yeah, I have. But when I was young,
guilty.
I stuck around for the musical act because I've always been very, very into music. And now, unfortunately, because I don't have cable anymore and I just watch it on streaming sketch for sketch, I skip over the musical acts, except when there's somebody like Justin Timberlake or somebody that really resonates with me. So I'm hoping to get a digital antenna so I can get the musical acts back into my life, because I think
Oh,
they
that's
are
good.
important. But again, they are only 10 minutes. And I think they're getting forgotten by our voters, JD. They really are, like in a major way. I looked at the stats and they're pretty sad.
Oh, do you want to?
Pretty sad. I don't have exacts. I tried to find exacts, but I really couldn't. I just went through.
Our statistician, our Hall of Fame statistician, has quit on us, so we're currently looking for somebody.
Yeah, stats are not definitely not my thing, but I am looking for my list, which I had sitting on my lap, and now of course I have misplaced it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So the artists that have been on the show, these are I might miss one or two, so forgive me. But the artists I have in no particular order are Pearl Jam, Paul McCartney, David Bowie, Paul Simon, who made it in, Rihanna, Beyonce, Dave Grohl, who's on the ballot for one more go round.
Is
This
it
is
just
it.
one more for him?
Yep.
Oh,
Taylor Swift, Nope, this is it. Taylor Swift, Nirvana, Prince, U2 and Randy Newman. Randy Newman's coming up later in the season. Miley Cyrus, Lady Gaga, Elvis Costello, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and Neil Young.
Jesus. Imagine seeing a festival with that lineup.
Oh my God. Incredible. The sad thing, only McCartney has made it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and didn't make it into the hall. I think he had about 40%, maybe 50 in his final season.
Yeah.
And McCartney was really crucial to the musical history of the show. And he's like best friends with Lorne.
He's a flippin' Beatle.
The only one who's made it in is the other Paul, who's the other best friend of Lorne. Lorne and his Pauls.
Yeah, I have a feeling
Paul
Lorne
Simon.
stacked the vote.
So Paul Simon is the only one who made it in, and I believe it was on the first ballot. And that is because he was such a huge part of the first 5 seasons. And he did several episodes, were back to back. I mean, he was a very special case. And so somehow people remembered him, even though he was a long time ago. Whereas all the rest seem to have gotten forgotten. Freaking Taylor Swift and Beyonce, 2 of the biggest names in music right now.
Right? They didn't make it off the first round, did it?
I'm not sure about that. They might have stuck around for 2 or 3. I couldn't figure that out. But they definitely didn't make it. They'd still be on if they did. So they both fell off because they couldn't keep 10%. 10%, that's hardly anything. So just some food for thought.
It just shows that it's not a generational thing, that it's not like, oh, people, kids today don't know Paul McCartney, or adults today don't know Rihanna, and so forth. So it just shows that it's just maybe a musical guest thing.
That's a really great point, Joe.
Very good. Yeah, very good point, Joe. It's not an age thing.
Yeah, I'm curious. There's been a couple times in my life, 5 in fact, 4, that I've watched a musical act on SNL that I didn't know before and bought the CD and fell in love with them. And I wonder, does that, like, I'm an old man now, so I get it. The musical guests are not really for me. I get it.
Right.
That being said, I'm curious if that experience of discovering someone on SNL is still something that people experience.
I think it's a mixed bag. It depends on the type of music, because back in the day, there was one way to discover music, which is like radio records. Now there's a billion different ways to discover anything. So, it's hard for Saturday Night Live to get to a musical guest before the audience does.
Right. I'm not suggesting that I'm on the cutting edge either. Like, it was, not bands that were like brand spanking new, but nevertheless, they were the first, my first exposure. Sorry, Shari.
Oh, no problem. SNL does do that though. They break a lot of bands that like nobody's ever heard of and kind of get them into, if not making them superstars, just getting them into the consciousness of people. I'd never heard of this. Was it Boy Genius? Am I screwing up the name?
No, Boy Genius. Yeah.
Boy Genius. I knew of those singers individually, but not that well. Cause like you say, JD, I'm even older than you, but I knew all the singers and I'd heard their names because I work with kids and teens. So I sort of knew, but they were fantastic.
They are great. And Phoebe Bridgers was the last one that I fell in love with on the show. When her solo performance for her second record, that was the last one that I was like, I got to buy this CD. Like, this is great. Sorry.
And Ray, who was on recently, she was excellent. Ray.
Oh, okay.
She was on a couple episodes ago. She might have been on the Kristen Wiig episode. She was amazing. I had never heard of her. So they absolutely do. I think they still bring artists.
Oh, that's cool.
To all ages. And I think that kids who didn't know art, like the Foo Fighters were just on not too long ago. I guarantee you there's kids who are like, who are these guys? And I bet they were impressed because the Foo Fighters blew the roof off the place. So
yeah,
I do think, JD, that it's still doing it. I think people are discovering music.
Well, that's good.
Even in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean that's how musicians stay alive. I mean, especially that brings us right back to U2. I mean, U2's had several peaks and valleys, and I'm sure people watched for Luke Wilson, the guy from Old School, and then said, "Hey, look at that U2, band."
Mhm. For
So
sure. For sure.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure about that one, Joe. You got me scratching my head.
Well, I'm just that's just a brand. I just have the Luke Wilson U2 on my notes.
I know you have,
So
you have it on your brain, but I just can't imagine somebody
Yeah.
being like, "Who is this U2 that are on Saturday Night Live?"
Yeah.
I think there are kids out there, JD, who might not know them. I mean, I would imagine their parents would, though.
You're right. Yeah. Okay. See,
Because
I'm 50,
Gen
so it's like
Xers,
I'm 50,
54.
and
I'm 54.
5-0. Well, the way I discovered U2, and this is my funny way, is back in around 2001. I was working at a video store, and we had to play that screener commercial video. And at the time, the movie Lara Croft Tomb Raider was coming out, and they were in the commercial. And then, don't get me wrong, I heard the name of the band U2, but I didn't actually. But Elevation, in that commercial, I was like, that's a cool song. And then, oh, that's
It is a
U2.
cool
Is that
song.
what U2 is? Oh, okay. So, people, discover it in different ways, and I'm sure Saturday Night Live, just I don't know, that's directed some people that way.
I agree. I think it definitely brought them even more to the forefront. They were hitting pretty big with Beautiful Day.
Oh,
That
yeah.
song was
Yeah.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
But I think they
that
definitely
9/11
gave them a
tie-in
push.
really
Mhm.
spurred them on.
Mhm.
Yeah. Going back to musical guests and their um disenfranchisement. I really want to make another appeal. And my appeal is this. Saturday Night Live is a variety show. That's what it was born as.
Yeah.
Lorne Michaels has a history of creating variety shows. Before SNL, he was doing variety shows for Lily Tomlin. Before that, he did a show in Canada on the CBC with Hart Pomerantz, which was a variety show. And that means comedy, interstitials, music, and it's all a part of the same ball. And there are some performances that have happened in 8H that are absolutely legendary, and they need to be recognized.
Mhm.
Maybe it is just a some sort of exhibit that we could build inside the SNL Hall of Fame, a musical guest exhibit with legendary performances. I don't know, but when you're getting Taylor Swift off the ballot in two runs, and I'm not saying she was an SNL Hall of Famer, but she is definitely a friend of the show.
For sure.
And it would just be good to see somebody recognized. And I think we have a shot with Dave Grohl. But I want to ask you guys, Joe, does the recent news surrounding Dave Grohl, and I don't really want to get into the nitty gritty of it because it's personal and that's not what we're here for. But I just wonder, in light of the current news, is that going to jeopardize his chance?
Okay, first off, Foo Fighters is my favorite band. I'm not really into music. I'm more into Saturday Night Live and comedy. But Foo Fighters, when I do like music, I like Foo Fighters. And as far as this child out of wedlock news goes, I'm looking around like, is this really the first time this happened? A musician had a child out of wedlock? Oh no, I hope this doesn't spoil over into the NBA. Oh my god, are movie producers going to be corrupt too? We can't corrupt the system.
Right.
Dave Grohl had a kid out of wedlock? No, the whole thing's going to collapse. Oh, no, it's the music. People are going to remember Everlong and Monkey Wrench and stuff. So here's what I want to bring it back to. So I hope it doesn't. And when people go to vote in an SNL ballot, I hope they remember, him being intertwined with Saturday Night Live. Now, I kind of have this spectrum with musical guests and Saturday Night Live, which is there's kind of three tiers to it, one or three ends or whatever. One end is you got the host musical guest, and probably the best that come to mind are Timberlake and Paul Simon and such like that. Now you got the other end of the spectrum who are just great musical guests and nothing more. And that to me is where U2 falls into. However, I just want to point out that middle side where you got the people that are great musical guests. They haven't hosted, but they appeared in sketches. And, those are people like Mick Jagger, Steven Tyler, Beyonce. And to me, it would, I think, help U2's chances is if Bono and The Edge appeared in a sketch or two, in the 50th season or something, because that's why I think like Mick Jagger and Dave Grohl should get a vote as opposed to U2, who are great musical guests. I mean, they do it. They sing three. The whole thing about doing three songs. That's a big thing. However, I think it would also help them if they were in a sketch or two. So
interesting. I hadn't really considered that. Musical guests that are hosts maybe have a better shot. But then again, there's the Taylor Swift argument again. What do you think, Shari?
Mm-hmm. Justin Timberlake, too. I mean, he's a host and a musical guest. He hosted a musical guest. He did double duty at least a couple times. And I thought he'd be a shoo-in.
Me too.
As a host.
Me too.
I think he's going to get nominated again as a musical guest. I don't think it's still not going to help him. But he's amazing. And Taylor Swift, same thing. She's double dutied and she's done a phenomenal job. I think she's going to get nominated as possibly as a host in the future to get her back on the ballot. She's an amazing host, but if Timberlake didn't get in as a host, I can't see her getting in.
Yeah, Timberlake.
I think it's a shame. Musicians have a stigma for some reason. And Justin has gone out of favor these days. I think
so. But if you think about, there was talk when he didn't get in that he didn't get in because he didn't work with, another set of cast members. He really worked with that third golden age group. And, holy crap, that's a pretty good place to be. And as a result, I would have thought he would have been, much more popular because that third golden age group have all gotten in on their first ballots. So people aren't forgetting about them.
Good point. Yeah, it's something with the musical guest. I call it in my notes, the curse of the musical guest. And I hope the curse gets broken eventually. I don't think it's going to be by our two season sixers. I don't think it's going to be by U2 or Randy Newman. But I guess we shall see what we shall see.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to, put the proverbial screws to you and ask you to rank the 5 nominees that we have in order of likelihood of getting into the Hall of Fame. You did this last week, and we're going to do this every week to see if it changes at all. To remind everyone, the nominees that we've talked about so far are Beck Bennett, Shari O'Terry, Garrett Morris, Adam Driver, and now U2. So, Joe, do you want to go first and rank these suckers?
Yeah, because I did have a change of mind.
Oh.
And here's another thing. As we go on, my mind has been changing. This Joe and this experience has been making me rethink things. I believe I did a top 10 when we started, and as we go on, that top 10 has been fluctuating.
Oh.
And so to answer your question, as far as everyone we've talked about so far, the way I would rank them is from most likely to least is, at least the way I would vote, Garrett Morris, because, just to sum up, he deserves it. He didn't get as much recognition and whatnot. Listen to that episode. then Shari Terry, because she's a cast member. And then I'm kind of tied between Adam Driver and U2. Both are
Really?
great in their own ways, doing their own thing. One's a great host, one's a great musical guest. I mean, I don't want to go. I could go on and on about it, but that's just some of it. And then after that, Beck Bennett. That's if he came back and hosted, that would increase me voting for him. But he's just been, it's just too recent or something. But yeah, Garrett Morris, Shari Terry, tie between Adam Driver, U2, and then Beck Bennett.
This reminds me of something you were just talking about hosts, and if Beck Bennett comes back to host. Joe is going to be posting his complete 25 person list of potential first time hosts on our Facebook group in the SNL Hall of Fame. So if you're not part of that Facebook group, get cracking. What are you waiting for? Shari, do you want to take it away and rank yours?
Yeah, I always think I come from a different angle than Joe. I don't do my personal. I do what I think's going to happen. So I do a slightly different angle. I do what I think the voters are going to do.
Okay.
We'll see if I'm right. And I think voters like recency. Not always, but I do think that there's a pattern. I think it's going to be Beck, most likely. Adam, a close second. I think they're going to be really close. Shari third, Garrett fourth, and again, the curse of the musical guest. I don't think U2 is going to crack 10%. I think they're going to go the way of Taylor and Beyonce. I hope I'm wrong.
Wow.
But that's the way I think people are going to vote. That is not the way I would vote. I would vote closer to Joe. But this is the way I think people are going to vote.
It's really tough. It's really tough because I think this year there's going to be 42 names on the ballot, I think. And you only get 15 votes. So it does make it tough.
It does. It's very hard.
Well, then in that case, we will bid you adieu. Before we do that, I want to thank Joe and Shari for taking some time away from the desk and coming down to the water cooler. Next week on the SNL Hall of Fame, we are going to be joined by Mike Murray, who is going to be nominating Charles Barkley as a host. This should be interesting. I don't want you guys to give away too much, but maybe just a first little thought.
I'm super excited. I'm super excited because I'm like a total fangirl for Mike Murray, SNL stats on the Saturday Night Network. I think he's incredible because I have no brain for numbers. So what he does with numbers is amazing. So I'm really excited to hear him. I know he's a big Charles Barkley fan. I'm not a sports fan, but I think Barkley is one of the better sports hosts. He's always funny. So it'll be very interesting. I don't want to say too much because we'll be talking next week, and I'm very excited to listen to the episode and then get to talk about it here next week. Very excited.
To go off of that, just to tease people, because he is a great sports host. In fact, he hosted 4 times for a reason. We'll talk about it. He's probably had a great sketch every single time he's hosted. He's not
Agreed.
just, someone that's, he hosted 4 times, which is a lot, for a reason. So listen to that episode to find out why he is so great.
Absolutely. And we will be back here at the water cooler next Thursday to join you again. We will be talking about Charles Barkley with Mike Murray. On behalf of Shari and Joe, it's been a blast. We are going to head back upstairs and stay thirsty. Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame Water Cooler. To connect with Joe and Shari, join our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/SNLHOF. To email the cast, write to snlhofwc@gmail.com. Please subscribe, share, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. To podcasts and such.
The changing of seasons can affect how you feel. 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all. Visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.